So I guess there was people that had different opinions. So there must have been, a bit of, obviously there's all the like I said before, all the XML people,
Yeah.
and then there's the kind of HTML people who don't
Yeah.
particularly use namespaces, or in some cases don't like namespaces because they confuse everything.
Right.
So is everyone kind of okay with the current proposal?
So we thought everyone was okay. We made this proposal and we discussed it. Probably Simon Peters and Henry Sifonen were most involved in these teleconferences, and we had like 3 of them last year. And then there was the technical plenary of the W3C where this was discussed again for another day. And after that, everyone sort of agreed that this was the way to go.
So this was October. This was October of last year, or November last year.
Yeah, November, probably early November 2007, I think.
Yeah.
And so all browsers, this was going to be the solution. We have there's a implementation in IE. Opera has an implementation of this. Firefox 3, which is, I heard, this new release, is also doing this, and they dropped their old implementation, so they're going for this. All kinds of libraries have adopted this new approach. So everyone thought like this is a done issue, right? The Aria draft still had like you can also use namespaces or something, but nobody really implemented that or followed that. We thought there was some kind of like thing that people who wanted to use namespaces in their vocabulary that nobody cared about could use it anyway.
Yep.
But I'm not sure. There have been proposals to take that out. So recently the W3C technical architecture group, also referred to as TAG, not to be confused with the things you use in HTML or XML, got involved and they're kind of opposed to this thing because they believe in distributed extensibility, which is that there's the potential to include 1 million arbitrary formats inside your language.
Who are the TAG?
So the TAG, so prominent people include Tim Berners-Lee, I guess, is pretty well known, right?
So they're kind of like the high level. I don't know if I understand this correctly, but they're kind of the overseers of the other specifications that get produced, in a sense. Because they provide the architecture for the World Wide Web.
So they try to define where the web should go and what the principles of the web are, as I understand it, I think. And then they try to guide other things and I think distributed extensibility is kind of the concepts they really care about. So it's not really clear whether it has any practical value.
So what you mean is that they have these solutions that they try to basically solve every single problem, right?
Yeah, so the thing with distributed extensibility is that since the start of the web, we have maybe 3 web formats that have got some kind of traction. That those will be HTML, SVG, and MAVML, right?
Yeah, and CSS.
Well, so CSS is not really a web format, right?
Yeah,
it has its own. That's its own kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like a web format is more something that you express in markup.
Yep.
And you want to use in your document.
Okay.
Like you would like to use graphics in your document, and math in your document is also kind of important.
Yep.
Right, for scientific documents and such. And HTML you would use for basically everything else. And with HTML5 we see it also being made good for applications, so recovering like the most common sets. So that's like in 10-year web history, we have 3 vocabularies that are, those are sort of getting mainstream, I guess.
Yeah.
Depending on where we go, but I think that will be the case. Mm-hmm. So now we got another vocabulary to address this accessibility situation we have with existing applications. And well, it's a really specific problem, right? It's exposing states to assistive technology. It's not like some kind of generic vocabulary.
Yeah.
And it's actually it kind of makes sense to have like a core accessibility API being a native part of the web platform, like a first-class citizen.
Yep.
So making it complicated by introducing namespace abstractions and things doesn't really seem to fit the purpose. And also, like, so we only have 4 vocabularies. Does it really make sense to require authors to use a syntax that is capable of addressing millions? I mean, Why
I don't know.
do we
We'll
need
see.
that?
Yeah, well, we'll see where it goes. So, speaking of that, how do we now move forward? So, what happens now? Where do you see this going?
So what I think is that browsers will ship, and the tech will be mad, and well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a pretty simple situation, really.
So is it kind of like in HTML 3.2 with with browsers adding new features, or what's it, because obviously we don't want to see a repeat of what happened in the early 90s, and with things getting messy and W3C wanting to go one way and browser makers going another way.
It's sort of like that because, but it's also kind of different. Like back then, there was no way to do styling. Even authors couldn't do something. But browsers added the wrong thing. Like they added the font tags and stuff instead of implementing CSS, which would have been a better way.
Yep.
Here we have authors who are already like innovating and doing all kinds of web applications, and now there's this group of people with a disability who can't use those applications because they don't expose the right states.
Yep.
Right. So they see an image which is actually a checkbox, and so they don't know how can we pass this form, how can we enter this information.
Yep.
And so that's kind of the thing that Aria addresses. And since it's a really simple thing, and it also gives us a core accessibility API in case the language doesn't have the things authors need, it seems kind of useful. But long term, we really want to have like native widgets available, the ones introduced in HTML5, so that authors don't have to do special coding for accessibility, but by using the widget properly, by using the progress element, for instance, it's directly visually good on the screen, but also good for assistive technology without them having to specially think about the people with a disability, because often authors don't.
Yeah, it was very difficult to visualize those visualize when you're designing how you would actually implement something for an assistive technology, and also assistive technologies are very expensive as well for a lot of designers, and like you said, they usually, although it's getting better, like you say, it's, some designers don't worry about the very, very slight possibility that somebody with with an impairment, with visual impairment or something like that, or auditory impairment may come to their website. And like you said, Aria takes care of this problem by hopefully making it really, really easy and encouraging authors to put in just a tiny bit extra markup here and there to deal with those situations.
Yeah, and probably what will happen is that like all the JavaScript libraries will just have this in, and so when designers say draw a progress bar here, it will automatically be accessible because they use like a library like Dojo that is already accessible by default. And libraries, as I said earlier, they're already being updated to do this kind of thing.
And like I said, the technology is good, the Aria technology is good, it'll become more mainstream, so it won't just be for assistive technologies, it'll be just for everybody, which I think would be great as well. So
maybe. I think we have to wrap up now because it gets kind of boring and it's real long.
Okay. Alright, well, thank you for joining us for the first episode of Standard Suck.
Standardsuck.org. We also have this sign